get great things done together. Yes, we can do that. It's the promise of Agile, right? So let's go back to the original question of this conference. Effectiveness, is Agile still the answer? Yes, but maybe not in the way that we normally think about Agile. To be effective, Agile also has to evolve. At its core, what makes Agile effective is its focus on understanding together, planning together, validating together, and reflecting together. It's because the challenges that we face today are just too difficult for us to solve alone. So, when we involve and engage people to understand together and plan together and validate together and reflect together, we create an environment where people feel valued, they have influence, they feel more motivated, they take more responsibility, and they're able to focus on more innovative or at least really great solutions. So today I'm going to share some tips and some tools on how to do those 4 things. And in that way, I hope that we can continue doing great things together. All right, so what do I mean by together, or who is together? Maybe that's a little disclaimer here. So together does not mean every single person in your organization all together all the time. That's not what I mean by together. Together are the people who have the interest, the influence, decision-making power, people who are going to do the work. Those are the people that you want to bring together. And depending on what it is, you'll have representative groups of people together. So as we go through, maybe there's questions that come up along the way, and yes, there'll be time for questions at the end as well. So that's what I mean by together. All right, so the first principle, if you will, is understand together. And what we want to do is reduce the amount of time we spend wondering, are we doing the right things? Wondering, is this what our customers are looking for? Maybe we're going through a reorg and we're wondering, who's our boss going to be? Or am I going to have a new team? Or. So there's a lot of wondering that happens in an organization. So if I'm from Denmark, so if I'm spending 1 hour a week wondering, and I'm only working for maybe 40 weeks, that's a lot of wondering. Multiply that by a 100-employee company, and I know that most of you are working in companies with more than 100 employees, 4,000 hours in a year. That's 500 days of wondering. Speaking of data, going straight to the bottom line, that's a lot of wondering. So we want to reduce that wondering. So on this time continuum, there's 2 ways to look at things. So the first is we've got our management or managers, executive leadership teams, whoever they may be, telling us what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to focus on, what we're going to do, maybe even a few that are telling us how to do it. Hope not. And then we go off and we're like, did you get that? I'm not sure. Probably, did you get that? I'm not so sure about that. And there's a lot of wondering. If instead we bring people together and create meaning about what it is that we're going to do, what we're going to focus on, and we give people time to work with it, sort of internalize it, if you will, ask questions. What does it mean for me? What does it mean for us? That is true understanding. The time is the same. We just spend a little more time up front creating that understanding of what it is that we want to do. And I often get pushback on this. Oh, Jenny, seriously? That's a lot of people we need to bring together. You know how many man hours that is? And I usually say, you mean woman hours? we bring the right people together, right? It's not every single person. We take a look at what is it we're trying to achieve in this, whatever it is. And then we look at the organization and figure out who are the right people to bring together. And of course, we're not bringing everyone together. So here we would want to have a representative group of people who are doing the work, who are close to the customers, who have maybe management responsibility, subject matter experts, and yes, even your partner consultants, perhaps, who are not maybe always invited to the table. So this is what we want to do when we understand together. We can't understand everything up front. So in agile ways of working, right, we're focused mainly on solving those complex challenges. So understanding or trying to understand everything, like all the requirements, all the risks, how we're going to mitigate all the risks, what the budget is, who's going to work on it, all those sort of traditional project management things that we try to figure out up front. No, we need to understand enough to get going. The direction we're going, why we're going there, what we're trying to achieve, and then the teams can figure out how, right, how we're going to do that together. So, and the only way to really know is to try something, to do something, right? So we need to see if we're on the right track. So we figure out enough up front to get going. So that's my little caveat here with this togetherness and understanding together. And how do we do it? Facilitation is your friend. This is the tool for understanding together. We bring people together. What's the goal? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? What do we want to share? What do we want people to come away with? What do we want you to do with that? We open it up for, maybe brainstorming or just for questions. What does this mean? How can we take this into our team? How will this work in our organization? How does this work for our customers? All of those things that come out when you open up. And then we have more discussing about, okay, this is what it means for us. This is what we might do with it. And we come to a result. And that result should be an internalizing of whatever it was that we wanted to understand together. All right. So once we understand the direction we're going, we want to plan together. And plans create certainty. So that sense of control, right? So for those of you who have worked in a traditional sort of project management setting, we want to have these plans that are set in stone, that we know where we're going. We've got everything figured out. It gives a sense of certainty. And we know, because we've been there, that the plans don't hold, right? They never do. It's like if you're using the dashboard lights, we're green, 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 green until we're close to delivering or supposed to deliver. Suddenly it's getting red, right? So it's watermelon green. Do you know this phrase? It's green on the outside, is red in the inside. It's an illusion. But the illusion is enough for our brains. We want to stay in control. It is part of how we operate. And when we feel that sense of certainty about what we're going to do, the brain can focus. If we don't feel certain, we can't focus. It's just part of how our brains work. So we need to be able to plan together to create that sense of certainty. And when we do it together, we give influence and we create ownership in the plan. So if I would take this from the management perspective, if the managers are doing the planning, let's say I'm a manager, I'm doing the planning, I'm in control. If the team members are doing the planning, they're in control. I'm starting to feel out of control as the manager. If we do the planning together, we're all in control. And that's really great for our brains. And now you're probably wondering, yeah, that's great, Jenni, you're saying all those things. And my manager is never going to give up control. Or it's really hard for me to give up control. So a little thing here. On the y-axis, we have give control to others, to our teams, maybe to our families, to our partners, to our fellow team members. And on the x-axis, we have competence and clarity. So how competent, technically competent, do people have the skills to do the job, make the decisions that we need to make? And do they understand where we're going, right? Yes, of course, we've been understanding together. So of course we know that. And you don't have people who are not technically competent in your organizations, right? They don't, this is not Scandinavia, they don't stay. Yes, okay, usually that gets a laugh, but it's early. What way do we go first? Do we go up, give control, or to the right, make sure people have the competency and clarity to do this, whatever the job is? Which direction do you think we go first? To the right? Okay, what makes you say that? You are right? What makes you say that? Yeah. Okay, we need to make sure people have the competence and clarity in order to take control. Yeah? Anybody else have another idea? Yeah, exactly. So I can admit I am a recovering control freak. I have a really hard time giving control. Now I've been practicing for a very, very long time. So I'm pretty good at work giving control, even with stuff that I care deeply about. I want to be involved, but I can give control to others. Maybe, just maybe, they're coming up with solutions that are even better than what I had thought we could do. So we need to trust first. That's the first direction. And this might be, for me, too much control to give at first. I might have to do half that, and then if nothing bad happens, then I can give a little more control. And the reason we need to trust first is mainly because of people like me, these control freaks we have in our midst, who will never believe that anyone has enough competence or clarity to make that decision as good or better than I could. So we have to trust first, and we do it in stages. So it looks like this. We give control, and then maybe there's a gap, a competence or clarity gap. A mistake happened. Somebody misunderstood the direction we're going. So in our plan, that doesn't make any sense. We need to take a step back and talk about what it is we're trying to accomplish again. So closing that competence and clarity gap until we have what we call the optimal work environment. It's safe, right? We give control, we close the gaps for competence and clarity as mistakes happen. So it's not a chaotic workplace where we give too much control. So I'm working right now with a company, and this is early in the assignment, and some of the leaders are talking to me about the team members who are running around like cowboys. They have all kinds of autonomy, and they're doing whatever they think is the best thing to do. And it's completely, or in their words, completely disconnected from the objectives and key results of the organization. That is chaos, right? We don't want that. So we give enough control and we see what happens. What happens more often is that managers, management, executive leadership teams, whatever you want to call it, parents, you name it, we don't give control to people who do have the clarity and competence. And then we get a lot of frustrated people. I mean, people don't stick around for this anymore. Back when I started working, it was like, oh, well, that's just how it was. Shitty work environments, that's normal. That's not how it is today. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. And certainly not in our industries. So, and it's certainly not part of what Agile is all about. So we want to keep people from being frustrated. So yes, when we all plan together, we're all in control of the plan. So typically this is what plans in the organization look like, right? There's some maybe big lofty goals at the top. Maybe it's 5 years or 25 years, depending on what industry you're in. And then they get sort of cascaded down. Each area is looking at, okay, what does this mean for our area? What's our roadmap for our area? And then the teams are making maybe a little longer plan, and then shorter, sweeter, more actionable plans at the team level, our sprint plans typically, or some sort of team plans, right? It's a cascading down. Plans in the organization. Instead, when we plan together, planning together in the organization, it looks a little messy. I know. It is a little messy. Actually, it's a lot messy in the beginning. It's so different than how we normally do planning involving these people. So it's like, really? And the idea here is that we've still got our big, lofty, fluffy, longer 5, 25-year goals, whatever they may be. And then we get a representative group of people together and start breaking that down. So what does that mean here, right? So we've got, instead of managers coming up with what the initiatives or epics are or whatever, we've got people who are going to do the work involved. We have subject matter experts who understand how long or how difficult it is to do this thing involved. And we go down and down and down until we're still at the team level, right? So going from fluffy to team. And we have that red thread going through. So it's traceable. It's transparent. This is the kind of transparency we want in Agile ways of working, right? We want to understand how the work that we're doing, the decisions we're making at the team level, connect to the overall goals in the organization. And if they don't connect, we need to understand why they don't connect. Why are we doing this, right? So when we plan in this way, we get more diverse perspectives, right? We involve the people who are experts in actually doing the work to be able to plan this work together. So I'm going to focus on the roadmaps here. I think teams are awesome at doing their own team plans. And I think 90-day plannings are a really great thing. It's maybe, can I say this without being struck by a SAFe god or something? It's like one of the few great things out of SAFe. Although please don't use the agenda as prescribed by SAFe for this. Anyway, pragmatic 90-day planning, bringing people together, really, really great. The roadmaps are crap. So this is what's also missing in Agile, right? We need to have a plan. Our brains crave this certainty. So this certainty drives us to focus on long-term, highly detailed, fixed plans. So that's what I call long and fat. Instead, we can take advantage of how our brains work and create a long and thin plan. It can go out as far as you want it to. Just let's not detail anything out. Maybe there's a few more details for things in the next 3 months or 6, maybe. After that, we've got a headline of what the customer gets, maybe a couple objectives or key results, maybe, or maybe not. And we have it in some sort of prioritized order. And we revisit it. often, at least every 3 months, and maybe every month, depending on what it is. So, and this is where I think Agile has gone wrong. So, all right, in the manifesto, right, responding to change, we value that. And we value that a little more than following a plan. Couple things wrong, right? Actually, yeah, a couple things wrong. One, when we say that out loud, responding to change or following a plan, we hear, oh, in Agile, there are no plans, right? So I wish there had been communication specialists with the 17 white guys in a cabin in Utah in 2001 who said, over following a fixed plan. That would have helped the rest of us so much. The perception of Agile is that there are no plans beyond a team plan, if you will. Here, if we can do our roadmaps in a long and thin way, we give certainty to our stakeholders. It helps us focus on what's coming down the road. We can break the things down that are in the next quarter into 90-day plans if you're doing that. And then the teams can take it and do whatever kind of planning makes sense for them. So in this way, we're able to create certainty and we can see where we're going, right? We have more understanding of what it is we're trying to achieve so we can make good decisions at the team level. This is the key. So a little story, we were working with a customer service organization in a large company, and the teams needed to get together, or we suggested they get together with their business stakeholders to plan together, to make a roadmap together. And this was a 3-day planning because they essentially had to start from scratch. We wouldn't let them bring in their long JIRA list of things. We actually made them do it in an analog way where we had the items on the table. And the teams were looking at the items to be done in the next quarter, focusing mainly on that, and had it prioritized based on their backlog. And the business stakeholders were looking at it, asking questions, and they said, you know what, this is not what we want. And they started reprioritizing, which was part of the facilitation process. Started reprioritizing those initiatives. And the team members, they were almost crying. They were mad. They were yelling. They were like, we're almost done with that. We only have 1 month more work to do on that. So we've been working on that for 6 months. Now you're saying you don't want that? Yep. We don't want it. We didn't ask for it. We don't want it. Oy, that was difficult. I can tell you at the 3rd day, when they had the plan, everybody was like, yes, we can accept this plan. We can accept this plan. It was really hard. And they've continued to do this way of planning on their own. And it's super easy after you do it the first couple times to reprioritize when new things come in. And where do the new things come in from? It's not just from the top, right? It's not like cascading requirements down into the plan. Teams are discovering stuff, right? The customer needs and pain points and opportunities. So initiatives are not just coming from the top. They're coming from teams more and more as we get better at being closer to our customers. All right, so the last one on Plan Together. We do this to create common understanding, a common overview, common plan, of course, and most importantly, in my view, common ownership of that plan. It's not, oh, somebody told us to do this. Nuh-uh, this is our plan. we have a responsibility for this plan together. And just remember, we revisit it often. We need to build that certainty into the uncertainty of planning together. All right, so validating together. How do we know we're on the right track? The only way to know is to show it. And who do we show it to? Our users. Not our proxy, not our stakeholder, although there's nothing wrong with also showing them. Primarily, we want the feedback from our users of the products or features, solutions, whatever it is that we're working on. So a few years ago, a manager I was coaching, he said, you know what, our team is having a really tough time with their demos, getting the feedback from customers. I said, okay, what's going on? Yeah, I think it's best, Jenni, if you just come and hear it from them. Thought, okay, great. So it's a large Scandinavian bank with headquarters in Helsinki, and the team was based in Finland. So I went and I asked some questions. So what's going on? Our users, they never come to our demos. They were using Scrum, so doing all the Scrum ceremonies. They never come to our demos. We invite them and they just never come. So we're never getting feedback. I said, okay, are there any branch locations nearby? They were making a solution that was being used by people working in the branches. And they looked at me like, stupid blonde woman. There's a branch location on almost every corner in this city. I'm like, oh, what's stopping you from going in and asking them? What? That's not what Scrum says. We're supposed to have a demo where they're supposed to come to us. And we ask them what they like and what they don't like. And I'm like, fuck Scrum. The purpose is to get the feedback from your users. If they are not coming to your demos, you go to them. It's not like, poof, they didn't come, so we're just going to continue doing things the way we've been doing it. No, how do you know you're on the right track? You got to get that feedback. All right, so for us, when we show something, especially when we show it early and it's skinny and doesn't maybe work very well and is not pretty or any of that, we're on this continuum. Actually, we're on this continuum all the time. This is the organizing principle of the brain to minimize danger and maximize reward. So all the driving forces in our brains, actually in our limbic system in this case, is making judgments about what's good for us and what's bad for us. And the limbic system wants us to stay away from things that are bad for us. This is how we've survived as a species for thousands of years. So when we show something, we're already, especially if we're thinking, oh, this is not very nice, and we know people are gonna like point out our mistakes and say, why are you showing me this crap? Show it to me when it's done or when it works or whatever. We're already on this side of the continuum, and it's like, and our instincts are to defend ourselves. So we've got stakeholders, maybe if we're lucky, our users who are saying, well, why is that little green button there? I don't like green buttons or whatever. And then we start defending. Well, you asked for a green button. It's in the requirements. I can show it to you. Or whatever. We defend ourselves. So in the validation process, if we can find some techniques to stay open and just take in that great feedback. Some of it's great, some of it is crap. Take it in, all of it. Then we can stay curious, right? in control of the feedback. We're just listening. We're not making any decisions in our validation session, whether you call it a demo or a review or inspect and adapt workshop, whatever you're calling your demo sessions, where you're show to know whether or not you're on the right track. The trick is to stay open and curious so we can get that feedback, that deep feedback, to guide our next steps. That's the purpose. And remember, if they're not coming to you, you need to go to them. So we're on this continuum. We need to find ways to stay open and not get defensive. So I'll have some tricks for you here. Pain, usually when we show things, there's not everybody who loves it. So when we get that sort of negative feedback or constructive feedback, it feels painful. It does. We're humans. It's like, oh, this is my baby, and now you're telling me you don't like my baby. Oh, that's painful. The trick here is that we don't need to make any decision in the demo and review session, or demo and feedback, or validation session, whatever you call yours. We do not need to make any decisions there. Agile doesn't say thou must promise something to your stakeholders in the demo session. It doesn't say that. So the trick is then we get all the feedback that we can. Crazy feedback in our heads where we're going like, no, we're not doing that. That's just dumb, or whatever. We get all the feedback. We ask open questions, curious, deep, say more about that kind of question. Get all the feedback we possibly can. And then we go back in the team and reflect on what we heard. Discuss the crazy stuff. Is there a nugget in some of the crazy stuff that we could use rather than dismissing everything as dumb, right? Maybe there's a nugget in there that we can actually use. Take that in. And we don't make the decisions just based on feedback. We have so much data about how people think, how they use things. So we need to also consider the data that we have. We need to consider what our overall objectives are. It's not only the feedback as part of the validating. So we take all those things in, and then we make some decisions, and then we have progress. So that is the way it works. So we need to ask for that feedback. And my suggestion in your validation sessions is that you really focus on getting all the crazy feedback you can. Everything. And when a stakeholder or a user says, yeah, so I would really like to have a yellow button instead of that green one, you don't say, oh yeah, okay, we can probably do that. No. You say, we'll figure out the how. Right now, we're just getting all your feedback. So thank you for giving us all your feedback. So no decisions are being made there. Asking and asking and asking. And then we need to choose, right? So that's the reflection part. Choose the things that make sense based on what you know, based on the data, based on your roadmaps, based on your objectives and key results, and then make those decisions. And of course, the using part, here we need to make sure that we tell our stakeholders or our users, if the case may be, what they can expect to see the next time around. So they've got those expectations. Now, I can tell you that also when you do validation sessions in this way, it's a lot different than sort of a normal, or at least what I have seen in a demo and feedback session, according to Scrum or SAFe or whatever. Suddenly we're asking all these open questions. It can make our stakeholders or users feel super uncomfortable. Like, why do you keep telling me, say more about that? So I let them know up front, hello, we want to get as much feedback as possible. We're not going to make any decisions in this workshop. So if you're thinking that we're going to tell you, yeah, we're going to make a yellow button, nope, that's not going to happen. We'll come back to you after we reflect on what we hear and take in consideration all the data and the overall roadmap, and we'll let you know what you can expect to see in our next validation session. All right. So reflecting together, we need to pause and open that space for learning and improving. We can't really do it any other way. So I love this. You've probably seen this. This happens every single day. It's like, oh no, are you doing retrospectives? I see nodding. Good. Yes. Yeah, I know there was a little discussion about whether we should do Game of Thrones retros or not yesterday. I don't care as long as we pause to reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well. And when we do that, we open the space for learning. So I'm a sailor. I can say that now. My husband is a big time sailor, and he's got a lot more experience than me. I have learned a lot over the years, and we have a nice boat. It does not have a thruster. I don't know if any of you are sailors. So a thrusting propeller enables the boat to go side to side. And the people who are rich have thrusters on their boat. We do not have that. And that means harbor maneuvers are a little more complicated. So coming in to get a spot after a long day out on the sea in the harbor, and then getting out of the harbor, depending on direction of wind and all kinds of things. So we do a retrospective after every single harbor maneuver. It's just natural to us. And it's not like anyone's told us, hello, you need to do a retro after your harbor maneuvers. No, we just started doing it because we want to become even better. And the things that have gone really well, we've named. So I have a maneuver named after me. It's based on physics. I'm a little proud of myself for that, getting us out of a really tight spot. So reflecting is a choice, right? And in our teams, if we really want to get better at what we do, we need to pause to do that. So no matter what methodology you're using, I don't care. Pause in the work at least monthly to reflect back on what went well, what didn't go so well. And what we know about the brain is that we can actually get even better at something we're already good at. So you don't have to just focus on an improvement item, something that didn't go so well. Focus every now and then on stuff that did go well, that's within your control to change. So, and again, with this idea here of learning and improving, we're on a continuum, this organizing principle of the brain, if you will, to minimize danger and maximize reward. And when we're minimizing danger, our limbic systems, where our old habits, emotions, survival mechanisms, defense mechanisms are activated. That's on this side. Move away from danger. Protect ourselves from danger. And on this side, we're doing a lot of proving that we did the right thing, proving that we're smart enough to have this job. So proving. Over here, our prefrontal cortex, where our objective, focused, rational thinking is happening, is activated. And it's this side where we're focused on improving. And it's this side where we get to those innovative solutions. So when we're talking about getting great things done together, we want this side to be activated. So the focus on improving, becoming even better than we are today. Some of you probably recognize this from Amy Edmondson. Psychological safety. So when we have teams that have high psychological safety, it's not just feeling comfortable. It's actually, we can disagree with each other. We respect each other. We can go like that around the tasks or the work items without it feeling like I'm being personally attacked. So it's that space. When we combine that with high performance standards, we have the learning and high performance organization. And it's this space where we have great stuff happening, right? So I read just recently, sorry, I can't remember where I read it. The competitive advantage these days for organizations is the ability to learn fast. So when we combine these two things, and what do I mean by high performance standards? It's the quality that we're working toward. It is meeting those customer needs, pain points, opportunities. It's looking at lead times. It's all of those things, right? And how do we get the standards? Who sets the standards? Teams. We do it together. We don't have management telling us this is what you need to do, right? And what I have seen with teams who are setting their own performance standards, they're higher than what I've seen managers try to get away with. So yeah, teams, we're harder on ourselves than maybe we need to be. But challenge is great for the brain. So we like those challenges. So learning in high performance organizations help us to be even greater in the marketplace and get those solutions that we're looking for. All right, so now I've talked about understand together, plan together, validate together, and reflect together. I have a little, call it a hack. So not quite a hackathon, just a hack, a little thing that you can do. Now, there's an example here, of course, and this is maybe more sort of management driven. But think of a challenge where you would normally decide what to do. It could be something at home even. Where I decide what we're having for dinner. No, or whatever. How we're going to work in the team, what we're going to do in the next sprint, whatever it is, something that you might decide. And instead of deciding, we get people together and we talk about, okay, here's the challenge. This is the challenge. In this case, it's the 6% cut. So rather than having management say, well, we're going to get rid of these 3 people, that'll meet the 6%. We bring it to the team and say, how can we do this? We give the frame. What's in it? What are the open decisions and what are the things that have already been decided? Like 6%. It has to be at least 6%. And then we get some solutions out of that. So, and then what do we do with those solutions? Maybe we need to create an experiment, or maybe we can just put them into practice. I don't know. So it's a really easy way to involve and engage people in, finding a solution together so we can get those great things done. All right, so now I've been talking for a while. I want to open it up for questions before I conclude. And because it's really difficult to go from listening to like asking a question for our brains, I want to just give you, 30 seconds, a minute to talk to each other or just sit and think about what you're wondering about. And then I'll open it up for questions after that. So talk to each other about what you heard, what resonated, what questions you have, or what stories you want to share. And then I'll check back in a minute. All right, now I get to interrupt you.
We have one question here.
Oh, already, fantastic, thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Charles.
Hang on just a second
Sorry.
until we have everybody. Yep.
It's okay. So my question is coming from, let's say, my experience. How to bring that culture and practice of learning in an organization which strongly believe that they don't have time, production is burning, and the culture is not there clearly. For example, because they were outsourcing the IT stuff. I think we are IT, so I will talk about IT. So how to bring this, how to talk the language of the stakeholders to explain them, hey, the solution is there. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. So my advice is to help them trip over the truth. What I have learned, over the years, and also the neuroscience backs this up, is that we cannot convince anyone of anything. Actually, the more we try to convince people, the more they put on the brakes. So maybe a mistake happened, or maybe there was something where you could be like, so what could we have done differently or something, even if it's a mini pause to reflect, and then maybe there's some learning thing that comes out of it. Okay, what can we do? We know, hey, you are all so busy. So we need to, we can't go on like a 3-day course or something like that to get better. What we need to do is find a way to make our getting better skinnier. So building on Agile, and maybe it's just, okay, every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, whether we're in the office or not, we watch a YouTube video of something. Or maybe it's an article that you can read in 3 minutes. Start super small, so it doesn't feel overwhelming for people. And I mean, I know it's like teeny, tiny. For us, it's like, really, this is going to take years. It's a start, and again, in my experience, it's the only way. Once we start sort of opening the door a little bit, suddenly it's like, oh, we could do a lunch and learn. We could take a whole hour, maybe bring in lunch. So there's an incentive there so you can find other ways to bring it in. That's what has worked for me. Yeah. Thank you. What other thoughts, questions?
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question regarding this graph when it was about the responsibilities and giving up the responsibilities for the people.
Yeah.
And I have a question about your opinion, because maybe there is no golden rule, but where we end up in this chaotic situation. So we gave up too much for someone that is not responsible to do this task. Do you think it's better to survive and somehow try to level up this person to make him capable of doing this thing that you tell him to do, or somehow limit this person and lower the expectations and change the situation by saying, okay, it's not for you, I'm going to do this, or give it to someone else?
Okay, so yes to the first 2 options you mentioned, no to the third. It is perfectly okay if you're in that or someone is in that chaos space where maybe they've gotten more control. They feel they have more competency and clarity than they actually do, and make decisions that create chaos. We need to help that person understand the effect, right? So saying things like, okay, this is what I saw, just sharing the observations, that this decision was made and then this happened, and try to be as objective as possible. So for me, what we need to do is increase the level of understanding we have about this, so that going forward, we can make smarter decisions, or that person can. You can take it in a one-on-one or whatever. If it's an ongoing issue, maybe that's something else. But certainly to help bring the person sort of down in the level of control for decisions that they believe they have, until we close that competence and clarity gap. So that would be my advice. And at the same time, right, in closing that gap, we want to be able to bring people up so that they're able then to later make the decision. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, about sort of taking some control back if you've given too much. Yeah.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Thank you for the keynote. Very interesting and inspiring. And one piece caught my attention. It was the visual about clarity and ownership when this is engaging. And at the bottom of it, it was push authority to information.
Yeah.
And my brain is wondering, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So when we're understanding together, in that it's the facilitation fish, I guess, when we open things up for getting ideas, looking for the contributions that people have, giving that influence, decision-making and the discussion, what we are doing is pushing the authority to make decisions to people who are closest to the information. So rather than a manager making a decision about, what or how or something like that, I hope we're past that, but I know we're not. Instead, we look at the people who know the most. They're the ones who should make that decision. And in this process, that happens. So we create ownership in the result. Yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you. What other thoughts or questions do you have? Sometimes I'm asked, do we need to get consensus on everything? On all of this? It's like, nope. All we need is acceptance. And when we involve people in decisions, even if they don't agree with it, they won't resist it if they've been involved, if they've had influence. So my question is always, can you accept this? Do you use the thumb technique? So can you accept this in the team? Accept this decision? Whatever. If we're here, yes, great. If we're here, it's like, not so sure. And there is like, no way. You just do one level up. If people are here, what would it take to get to here? If they're here, what would it take to get you here? And then usually we can get there. But consensus, no, we're not in Sweden. So no. Other thoughts or comments? Yeah, Gustavo.
Thank you for the talk, first of all. I would like to, considering what you said, that it's super hard to change people and people get defensive, yes, and say, no, that's my way of working. How to convince our senior leaderships and high management that, yes, they need to involve more people because they are not used to that.
No, you can't convince them. Sorry. I mean, you can't change anyone. We can change the approach that we use. We can change how we talk about the issues. It can take a really long time to get executive management involved. I mean, I'm at the point now in my life career where I don't even take an assignment unless senior management says, yes, we're on board with this. And still, a lot of times they don't know what they've signed up for, right? So it's like, what? We're going to involve and engage all these people? No, we can't do that. And, all the pushback that we typically get when we're working in this way. So again, tripping over the truth. So I will ask, depending on how provocative I want to be, how's that working for you? How's the approach that you're using right now working for you? What are the challenges that you're facing? And then I bring in as much research and data as possible. Usually that at that level, they don't care about my stories. I try to weave them in a little bit because there's that emotional connection. However, when we can talk about, this is what the science shows. This is how our brains work. This is not, somebody just thought, oh, it's a good idea to get everyone together. No, there's a business value attached to this. So can we do an experiment? We'll create evaluation criteria and conditions. We'll run it just for 3 months or whatever, however long you want to run it. Would you be okay with us doing that? We need you to be involved in this. And in that way, again, try to make it skinnier, easier for them to see the results of, of what's happening. So do I have time for a quick? Yeah, I can tell this super quick. So I was asked to, a couple of years ago, come into a company and change the way they did planning. Jenni, can you change the way we do planning? Sure, I can do that. I'm like, so say more, say more. Well, our planning doesn't work across any levels. The teams don't even talk to each other. Okay, so I thought 3-level planning, right? We need a roadmap, we need a 90-day, and we need team plans. And like, how are the teams doing it? Yeah, the teams are planning. Okay, how long is the planning window? Yeah, a week, 2 weeks. Okay, great. Don't need to touch that. And the leader, the executive, he said to me, I think we just need to focus on the 90-day plans because we have roadmaps. Like, okay. In my head, I'm thinking, let's see the roadmaps. And I did see the roadmaps and they weren't good. They were not good. And I thought, okay, we need to get the roadmap cleaned up. Otherwise, how do we get the 90-day plan, right? If we don't have a clean roadmap, what are we working with? So I said, let's get everybody together, the representative group, to create the roadmap. And they had a really hard time deciding who the representative group was. So there were about 35 people in that, and it was too many, and it was a disaster. It did not work. Yeah, we had a plan, but it was shit. It didn't work. I thought, oh, this isn't good. Because then the leader had even more ammunition, like, no, we just need to focus on 90-day because this whole thing with the roadmap, that didn't work. So we're not doing that again. I'm like, okay. I knew in my head that I had to give up trying to push that in and instead let us do the 90-day. So we created an experiment around 90-day planning with a representative group of people across the organization. What are the evaluation criteria? What are the conditions for this? And ran it, and it ran for a year. And after the first 90-day planning, there was uproar from team members saying, well, how can we have a good plan if we don't know what the roadmap was? And I'm like, bingo, trip over the truth. Now we can focus on that. So instead of me pushing in, it was a pull, and that is what works. So if we can create a pull for our senior leaders in this, that will work so much better than trying to convince, because you'll have, I mean, I've been there, those nights where you're just like, oh, I can't get my message across and all of that. So thank you for that. All right. I just want to leave you with this reminder that when we involve and engage people to understand together and plan together and validate together and reflect together, we do create a space where people feel valued, where they feel influence and ownership. They're able to focus on where we're going and how we're going to get there. And that is the space where we get great things done together. So thank you.